Hello everybody. Hi, we're gonna do something different here. We're gonna do a conversion. We're gonna convert. I talked a while back about contacting Seagull Godin to see if I could get G Merlin, Merlin tuned to the key of G, and a spruce body, spruce top instead of mahogany, and they told me no. So I'm gonna make my own. That was the plan when I bought my extra Merlins. One was to take to work, one was to leave as a D, and one was to convert. And this is the one we're gonna convert. So what I'm gonna do is just a little bit here and there. I'll the video in and out. I'll come back and forth as in different steps where I am. It's honestly, I don't see it being that difficult at all. And then I'll talk about the strings in a second in some part of this video as well. And then while we're doing this, since what I have to do is move the bridge, that's how I have to convert it, because the intonation is going to be off. So we're going to talk about intonation at one point in the video as well. In the description, I know this is a big topic, so in the description on this video, I'll put the time of where I start the intonation stuff. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I'm going to start by taking the strings off. Yeah, I still got my string winders, but this little thing, it needs new batteries, it's almost dead. This little thing, frick, so good. This little cup thing was more expensive than it should be. A little cordless drill, a little cordless screwdriver wasn't that bad. But oh my god, does that make things easier? Especially back in the day when I was using normal strings instead of coated strings. And I did a lot more string changes. Like I'd be changing all the instruments I have, I'd be changing over and over again every couple of weeks. At least one guitar needed to be done. So it made a big difference. Alright, I'm just gonna pause this here. I'll come back once the strings are off. Alright, we're back here. I get the strings off. Okay, so depending on your Merlin, this is the very first one I bought. They're probably at the most a year old at that point. They had been on the market for about a year when I first got mine. So my model was about a year old. And at the time, the bridges were not glued in. Now, I don't know on the two other spruce top ones I bought. Because one I haven't changed the strings yet, and the other one I don't remember. I know my mahogany version, the bridge was glued down. So that kind of causes a problem. See how much the wood has discolored over time? My original plan, I had made a couple of wood blanks up to use as a bridge. And then I had no way of precision slotting that to put in. I don't know if that looks good anyway. It would have been darker wood once I oiled it up, but that didn't work out. So what we gotta do, because you've got these holes here, right? Now, the amount of adjustment we're going to need to move this, the holes should still be covered by the bridge. We shouldn't have to move it that much. The discoloration, I don't know. I'm gonna have to see if I can clean it up. Usually I use some Scotch-Brite and clean that up with that. So what we want to do is kind of, what you should do first is take a picture of your bridge, so you see which way it's in, which way everything is, because that way so you don't come back and flip it around the wrong way. Actually, there is no wrong way because it's exactly the same. So that's the one good thing about the discoloration. It's exactly the same. So it's just the actual slotted nut itself, slotted bridge part, that changes. So it doesn't really matter. Alright, so that comes out as well. And what we're going to do, I'm going to get rid of the Merlin for a second. I'm hoping will work, is I got one of these little really fine pullback saws. Anyone that's considering putting more frets, this saw is the perfect saw to do it with. Most of the times what I use this for is if I got a cheap guitar's got a plastic bridge, I'll use this to start the slot on a bridge or on a nut if it has a nut. This has 0 fret. I've worn those frets pretty good. I think it's been 3 years. Alright, so let's get rid of these plastic nubs. Those have to come off. Get that thing started. We're already halfway through. It's not going to take much. And there it goes. And it flew. I'll step on that later. And then the other side as well. And that one I'll step on later too. Oh, I see it. Actually, I see them both down there. Oh yeah, so that leaves us with just a little bit of a raised piece on both of them. So we're just gonna file that down. If I had my Dremel out, I'd use that. And the other side. You just want it flush. And that's it. So now you basically have a bridge you can move. Yeah. So now you can adjust your intonation, which we're not talking about yet. We'll get to that in a second. I'll let dust off there. Alright, I'm going to pause the video. I'll be back. You know what I never noticed before on the bridge? If you see that little hole right there, they've got it pre-drilled because that's where you usually put a little pickup in. Never noticed that before. Alright, I'm going to pause this video, get set up, and then I'll be back soon. Well, I'll be in a second for you. Okay, so back to it here. I screwed up. So my pick guard was a little too big. So I figured, well, I'll just trim it with a knife. And I freaking totally destroyed it. So eventually I'll be doing a new pick guard. That's fine. I actually want to do one like my other one anyway. It has that scallop there and it comes to a point. Actually, I think I already got one cut. I should look. Maybe I'll put it on before I put the strings on. Okay, so I cleaned up the Merlin, but you can actually feel divots in there from my picking. It's horrible. It's the whole reason for the pick guard. I cleaned it up, but the discoloration is not going to go anywhere unless I do a sand. I'm not going to sand. I'm not really too worried about it. From where the bridge is going to be, it's going to be a little bit skewed that way, just to give me a little bit more for my wound strings. So for strings, what are we going to use? So the D Merlin, you have a 25 wound string, 16 plain, and then a 12-12 double course on the bottom. On a G, it's a 47, 33, and then the bottom is a 23 and a 10. So what I did, I picked these up a while ago. Martin, these are for a 12 string. I got them at Long McQuaid. Canadians know Long McQuaid. For the Americans, it's like Guitar Center, same thing. 12 extra light 10s, 12 strings. So what that does, come on, focus in here. So the D, we're going to be using a 27, which is a little bit thicker, but not too big of a deal. An 18, which is a little thicker, no big deal. And then on the bottom course, we're using a 12 and a 10. I've done that before where I use different gauges on the double course, and it actually does give it a little bit of a different ring. And then for your G, we're using a 47, a 30, which is a little bit thinner, a 23 and a 10. So the only one different we're changing is a 33 to a 30, but not that big of a deal. If you can see D and all the points is what we're using, the G and all the points. So using 8 of the 12, so you have 4 extra strings. I'm gonna look next time at maybe getting the mediums, which would probably be 12s. It might be a better match, but a 12 pack of strings like this was, I think I paid $7, $5.69. They were cheap. So compared to buying the Godin strings from Godin, which don't sound that good, I've always liked the Martin strings. I'm on all my acoustics. I've switched to the Elixirs, just because I can't bother changing strings all the time. So I use the Elixirs on my electrics and acoustics. But I haven't gotten that far on this yet. I might try those on the Merlin soon. But they're, I don't know. The Elixirs are more of a warmer sounding because of the coating you put on it. It's kind of like when you put a brand new set of strings on, you get about a week of that really bright sound, and then about a month of the normal sound and before they start to die. I always say if you're playing every second day, your strings are 6 weeks. That's what I would change that. So you get a week of really nice, bright, I love the new string, and then about a month. The Elixirs go bypass that first week. You don't get that really bright, and then you get what you get the month after on the normal set of strings is where the Elixirs start. But the Elixirs I change once a year, so big, huge difference. I can bear with not getting that 1 week of new if I get a year of them, instead of changing every 6 weeks. So anything else we got to do? No, I'm gonna string it up, and then I'll leave them loose and we'll come back. I'll see you in a second. Alright, back again. Not like I ever left when it comes to the video, but alright, so we got it strung up. I got it semi-tuned. And what's a G supposed to be? GCG, I think, right? I don't think that's tuned at all. So G, C, So intonation is not that bad. Well, why does it sound like that? So I've already kind of, you can see the line of where it used to be. I've kind of moved it back more on this side, a little bit on this side. I think I'm going to come in a little bit here. Why, oh why? So the intonation's pretty spot on. That's, it's not GCG, it's GD. Well, that's a way different sound. So I haven't stretched my strings out yet, which is always a good thing with new strings. You just give them pulls, just so they stretch out a little bit. Because if you don't, you're going to be retuning, well, every 10 minutes. Because they'll stretch on you as you're playing. So if you pre-stretch them, then you got a lot better. Alright, so there's a few things in the last step that I was a little worried about. I can't zoom on my phone. Alright, so the intonation thing, I knew the high strings I would have to set back a little bit because I would have to split the difference between the new wound string and the unwound string. Because the unwound string would want to be exactly where it was. And the wound string would have to go back just a touch, right? And then as we got to the thicker middle and then the even thicker low, I knew this side would have to go back even further just to compensate for the thicker string. And honestly, if I look at it, this part here stayed pretty much the same. This side probably moved 1/16th, maybe an 1/8 of an inch. No, 1/16th of an inch. It moved back a little bit just to make sure it was in perfect intonation, which it is pretty damn close. Actually, let me get the better tuner out. Someone asked me what tuners I used. These are just cheap off Amazon. Focus up, come on. I think they're like $6 on Amazon. They work for me. Probably the better ones are the Snarks. Alright. That is pretty much bang on. It's a little high. That's that's pretty close. That's a true test is the playing, right? That's pretty bang on. So that was the first worry on doing this. Second worry was the slots, because on your bridge, they are actually slotted, right? So I was worried that I might have to open those up a little bit, which is easy enough to do. These little file sets, they're cheap. They endless on what you can use, especially when you start playing around with instruments. I use them usually. You originally bought them to do fret ends, just to dress them up. They got a little sharp, because they will, especially if you got really low humidity where you live, especially in the winter times. The wood will shrink, and then you'll really feel you can actually cut yourself on those things. So watch out for that. So the intonation was a worry, and then the slots was a worry. I wasn't worried about the bracing. I had tested this out before, even thicker strings on mahogany when I was experimenting, and that's where I learned that I knew I had to make the bridge movable. Which brings us to the intonation. So the whole thing with the intonation, I've always said, and you can hate me for saying this, you don't have an intonation problem, you have a player problem. That's usually the problem. Intonation, if you sound out a little bit here, by the time you get here, you're going to be so out of whack that you'll be playing like a completely different note. It's not going to be a hair off, a little bit off. If you are out here on your first fret, by the time you get to your 7th fret, you're going to be up by a whole note. Like the intonation, if your intonation is up, so it's never an intonation problem. And the whole thing, they're not hand-built instruments. Everything is cut precision-wise, right? So you're not going to get one where your intonation is out and the next 100 are going to be fine, right? So I'm always going to say it's an intonation. It's not an intonation problem, it's a player problem. And I had that problem too. When I first started, my chords always sounded off. And it's because you're pressing too hard, you're bending a little bit when you shouldn't be. It just takes time to get used to it. I played guitar for 20 years by the time I got this thing. And it was a whole new thing, right? And this is all on a D. I don't think you're going to have any problem on a G. I've never seen anyone complain about intonation on a G. It's because you got thicker strings, more tension. So you shouldn't have a problem. So, all that being said, now I'm going to shoot myself in the foot and say, if you do actually have an intonation problem, if for some reason that Seagull put something out where the holes were in the wrong spot, that's the thing. With the way they do it, the holes, there's never going to be a mistake. But if there is, if you press that first note and it sounds a little off and you get down here and it sounds like a whole note off, because on a D Merlin, that's an A, right? So A, so you're playing B here and then you'd be playing A here. So if your B here would be like a hair sharp, by the time you got here, where it should be an A, it'd probably be an A sharp. That's how much the intonation will change from here to here. So if that is the case, and you actually have a real intonation problem, this is how you fix it. You take your bridge off, you take those ends off, like I showed you earlier in your video, and you make this a floating bridge. And then you can change it, and you can, it's gradual, little bit of time you change it till you get it. Frick, every time I put strings on, I forget to put my freaking tie on. Anyway, so that's my little rant. But most likely, with the intonation, if you're pressing too hard, like this does not need to touch the wood. Your string does not need to touch the wood. You're pressing too hard. It just till it hits. Because you can hear that. Like there is room, right? From the time you hit the fret to the time you hit the wood. The time you hit the wood, you're pressing too hard and you're bending the string. That's why you have a problem with intonation. Either that or when you're doing a fret, fretting a chord, if your finger placement isn't perfect, you might be pushing a little bit up or a little bit down on that chord. I did it too when it was a brand new instrument to me. Like the first 3 months, it was all the time. And you'll even see I do it now. And when I do it, like I'll be playing a chord, and I go and hit something, and it doesn't sound right, I'll lift up my hands and go right back down to it, because what I'm doing is I'm pushing up on a string. Oh, see, there's a problem. That string just popped out the slot. So that's what I mean. I might have to cut those slots a little bit wider yet. Oh, I just did it again. Okay, so let's do that right now. Since we have that problem. Where's the right file? So all I'm going to use is a little triangle file in that slot. Just a couple passes, not going to take much. That's it. And a couple more. You don't want to go deeper. You want to go on the side. A little bit more. And option 2, I want a bit of a string peg. See, that's why a string tree, sometimes you see people that will put something that sits right here that holds the string in place. Keep an eye on that. What you really want for a file like that, to do that, is a little file that is, you see that has a curve on one side, flat on the other. The ones I like is curve on both sides. And then you can get really to the point where you can widen that fret just a touch. Okay, so I think that's it. Intonation is pretty much covered. Again, I've covered that many times. I'm happy. This actually, I like the sound of this. Oh yeah. And Merlin said I couldn't get a spruce G. Come on now. Alright. That's it. Alright, so I grabbed the camera just to finish this video off. I turned off all my bright lights. But that should be enough. Maybe I'll just turn on the high overhead. It really does nothing. That's fine. Doesn't matter. Okay. So we finished filing that the slot on the 0 fret there. All the other ones you shouldn't have a problem because they all run straight, right? It's just this one runs to an angle, right? So it's going to want to pop off and sit naturally where it would. But I might have to do a little bit more filing on that. It's no big deal. You can see where I screwed up the pick guard. And then the bridge. So if you look, this here barely moved. I don't think we moved at all. I think it's in the same spot. And then you can see where the discoloration is. Or where it's not discolored, I should say, where the original wood is. We moved it that much. Wasn't much at all. Just enough to make up for the thicker strings. If I did this again, if you were doing this, what I would do, I would file off, I'll cut off the point, the nub on this side, and leave the nub on this one alone. So that way it pivots on that one. Because this one, you want, oh no, because if you do that, what's here? Yeah, I would try it. I would honestly try it. I'd leave that nub there and just take this one off so it pivots. And that way you have a good starting point. If you do this, every time you change the strings, you're going to have to reset it. So a good rule of thumb, just grab a pencil. Just mark where it is. Makes it a lot easier. Other than that, that's pretty much it. I think it turned out pretty damn well. I should send this to Seagull. Thought you said I couldn't get a G spruce. Nah, I'm just being petty now. Alright, that's it. I'm gonna jump on here again quick and do another quick little video. But other than that, I've got nothing worked out. So it'll probably be a week or so and I'll have something new coming. And that's it. So we'll see you guys next time. Practice patience, have fun.